We'll start 3 lines from the top. Excuse me. In the middle of that line, the ikor yislein ha-gibor, explaining that the principle yislein, the supremacy of the gibor over the cholosh, the term gibor, hu ma she'ein shum davar sheyikover lefon. The principle of the gibor is not his physical strength. It is that there is nothing that faces him, nothing that is too difficult lefonov, in front of him, meaning he cannot. There is nothing that he cannot overcome. As for example, in the case of gibor v'chochmah, which is also an applicable term, with the principle of gvura when it comes to chochmah. In general, the gvura hu mashi bicholte limtzei dvar sechel. It is the principle that he is capable of finding or bringing out dvar sechel, a sechel element. Gam im hu musto v'nelem beyeser. Even if the sechel is hidden, v'nelem, and it is concealed within the entity in a very deep way. She'einoi nikor klal ha-sechel shebozeh. That when you're looking at it, at first glance, einoi nikor klal, you cannot tell at all that there is an sechel in them. Harei hu meitzei eisei, but he finds it. Then he delves in and he brings it on. The ligilui, he actually can show it and reveal it. In other words, he stands up. He can stand up to any helem or hester. Just want to clarify. When we say that you don't see any sechel in this, and he is able to find and bring the sechel out. And in today's world, it is necessary to understand the significance of this. Because there's a whole sechel, quote unquote, whose objective it is, the sechel chitzoni. The meaning for sechel chitzoni is that, on the contrary, when you see sechel, to do away with it and to eliminate it, the whole approach is to demystify the presence of whatever there is in the world. For example, I speak about this all the time, so I'm using this as an example, but this is rampant. Sight. Sight is a is a miracle experience. It's a godly experience. It's a godly phenomenon. I point out all the time. If you think about it, you relate to a physical object without even coming close to it, which is phenomenal. A physical object is totally separate. Every physical object is separate from every other physical object. So we demystify it. We say, no, there's a ray of light which consists of an energy source. And this energy hits the object. And because it's a physical object, it doesn't let the energy go through. Therefore, it deflects off the object. And then that energy continues to flow and in the manner that it was deflected from the object into your eye. And therefore, you see it that way, the way it is deflected. And there's no difference between your experience of sight and lahavdil, the animals, and the camera. Baharai, you'll be able to create a camera that also can, quote unquote, see. So I've explained many times, these are totally three different phenomena of sight. A human being sees, the animal sees, the camera sees. It's completely three different states of sight. The camera indeed sees the physical object. It's a physical sight. And the light that hits the camera is a physical light. Energy. The animal is a living entity, and therefore there is an element of sight. The horai, for example, the animal can get scared by sight. It gets scared by sight, which means it doesn't have to actually experience it, gets scared by sight. It can react to sight. The human being by sight is a completely different experience. Sight, a human being who is allowed, who was not perverted, right? His mind was not perverted. In sight tells him the reality, that there is reality, that there is truth in this created world. It's a completely different thing. Like it says, when you lift up your eyes, then you see not the hosts of heavens, but you see who created these. That's what sight is. Really a ruchnistic experience. So to be able to go and take this ruchnistic experience of sight and to reduce it to a physical phenomenon, this is not sechel. You should not mistake that. That's not sechel. On the contrary, sechel is that which reveals a neshama, an element, that sees what the real phenomena, what the real significance of this is. Like we're saying exactly what he's saying, but the opposite. You see something, and when you think about it, you see only as a physical thing. He says, no, it's not a physical thing. You are seeing the creator of this physical thing. That's sechel. That's sechel. This is the living, this is the neshama seeing this. At first glance, he said at first glance, you can't see it. You can't see the sechel in them, but you know that there's a sechel in it. You know that everything is a ruchnistic inyan. Because, as we said many times, light was a breakthrough in the world. It's a creation that transformed the world from being an exclusively dark world to a world that also can accommodate light. This is where so this is pshat that he's able to bring a dover sechel, bring out the sechel, even in a place where, at first glance, you don't see the sechel in it. Big deal. So you see this physical object. But actually, what you are seeing is a dover shel sechel. Like we say, a clock on the wall. You don't see the clock and you don't see the wall. You see the sechel, the living element in this. This is sechel, and that's what he says. A gibor b'chochmah means one who is able to bring out and to see the sechel, the lebedik Ayin and everything, even in something that, at first glance, does not appear to contain any sechel. All right. This is the term gibor, gvura. The word gvura means it goes with force and breaks through the barriers. That's what a gibor. And this is a spiritual force. Okay, so let's continue with 6 lines from the top. The line begins with what Moitze is. So he can find the sechel in everything, even that where the sechel is not noticeable at all. Or be'inyan shu mufrach ma'oid. When you talk about something something which is very distant, which is completely out of the question, so to speak. It is totally impossible conceptually, this thing, it is concealed behind tremendous mystery. Halomis v'hestadim. B'yichoiltoi lahosir kol ha'halomis v'hestadim. It is within his capability to remove all the halomis, all the concealments, and all the things that hide away this truth. Alidei shemagia el oimeg hoyinyan b'yoiser. How does he remove these halomis v'hestadim, these concealments? It is by the fact that through the process, the magia, that he reaches to oimeg ho'inyan, to the depth of the hinyan. To reach depth, to the extreme depth of the hinyan. Shalidei zeh meisir kol ha'halomis, whereby he removes all the concealments.
I missed the connection. You went just on to explain this sight, what sight does for a person, and so on and so forth, right? And now we start reading inside. We're trying to say that this fact of sight that is kind of escaping, meaning it's easy to lose, and a gibor will get it out, meaning he will get it. Whatever the sight shows, meaning the truth of sight, versus started to think that this is just like physical phenomenon. I don't know. Is that what the connection is?
The gibor will be able to see, to bring out in this physical sight the depth of it, what it stands for, what it's significant.
Because sometimes it's very difficult.
It's not only, there is a way to see, you're seeing a physical object. So the significance of that experience is completely lost.
Right. So he will go to the until the end to make sure that he gets that.
Okay. Yeah.
That. I just missed it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. You don't walk there with your feet.
Okay.
So B'ribi Halomis is completely concealed. By reaching to the depth of the inyan b'yoser, to the extreme depth of this union, and thereby he removes all the helem for hester. For this, we can we can readily recognize as we speak all the time. For example, the koiches hanefesh. A person walks by moving his legs. A person talks by moving his lips and his combination with the tongue and with the teeth, and he produces sound. Therefore, to say that walking, for example, is a koyach hanefesh. What does it appear to be? A koyach of the guf. Where do you see nefesh in this? He's able to move his legs. Okay, that's nefesh. But that's not walking. That's moving your legs. Walking is walking a koyach or is not? Is the koyach consist of just moving your legs? Or is walking koyach hahiluch? Is it a koyach?
I'm not sure I'm getting the question. Is walking a koyach? Is it a faculty or is it a neshama faculty? What's the question?
Is walking a koyach or walking just is a result of moving your legs?
Is it a koyach? Koyach hahilucha. We say it. So.
Yeah. So where do you see the koyach in it? You see moving your legs.
Is walking inadvertent just because you're moving your legs? No, it's a real faculty.
Is it a faculty? Is it a neshama faculty? In order to recognize walking as a koyach, it's called in Chassidus koyach hahiluch, koyach haksiva. Right, is riding a koyach, or is it part of the koyach hatnuah? The same goes back to what we spoke before, even on a more refined. Is ri'io a koyach, or is it the physical phenomenon of light hitting your eye?
And if it's a koyach, this shows on being neshama.
Is it a koyach? Right, is it a koyach hanefesh? In particular, I said the most obvious koyach is in walking. Koyach hahiluch. It says koyach hahiluch. No koyach hahiluch.
Just move your legs, right?
Huh?
Just move your legs.
Move your legs and you walk.
And you're saying animal taka does that?
Animal doesn't know anything that it does.
All right.
And the koyach hahiluch ba'udam is obvious. It's a koyach hanefesh because, as always saying, that he walks on 2 feet.
Right, but he stands on 2 feet. Once he stands, he can walk. I hear what you're saying. Okay, so in all of these things, one has to really discern and identify clearly, and it is it's completely concealed behind the physical facade. How many people realize that standing is a nefesh phenomenon? So, and how does one bring out the nefesh and the sechel in this, and to show, hey, there is significance to this. This is by going to al-oimek b'yoser, to the greater depth. Eime goyim b'yoser. He goes to oimek goyim b'yoser. You spoke about walking, for example. Walking superficially is moving your legs. So we'll go slightly into this. Moving your legs. Moving your legs, you can move your legs in place. Or you can move your legs on the ground and push yourself off from one place to the other.
So what? I'm sorry.
Walk in place.
Walk in place?
Or you can walk forward.
Oh, okay.
You can move your legs in air also. Is it the same thing? Is it all the same thing? Is it all the same spirit? So, if one delves deeper into this phenomenon of walking, one finds that the real koyach of walking is not moving your legs at all. The real koyach of walking is changing positions, moving from here to here. This is the koyach. This is the spirit that carries him from place to place, and the spirit that makes the legs carry him. Hiluch means changing places, and the phenomenon of changing places is not just that he has moved off from this place, but it's a change in venue, because a person is in this place, he belongs in this place. And in order to tear himself away from this place and move into another place, it's a koyach ha-nefesh. For the mental principles, it is required that one should be able to relate to a place where he is not. If a person were to perceive that the place outside of him is nothing, is nothingness, could he walk? It's a phenomenal perception. Like we said, that really a person perceives the entire world as his domain. This is what permits him to move from place to place. And how is it his domain? He was never there. So how is it his domain? The answer is, God gave him that domain. When God put him in the world, he gave him the whole world. The whole world he put in his heart. This is what that koyach stems from. So if you look at it and you say, oh, he's walking, moving his legs. Think about it for a moment. If it were dependent on the legs, how long could the legs last?
So, leg.
How much stamina would they have? How
long can the legs last? How long can they carry on like this? Walking, carrying such a weight. You know how much weight he's carrying? 150 pounds on his legs? It's not the legs, it's the spirit that carries it. He hardly steps on the legs.
So it's not a person walking is not a mechanical, even physically, it's not a mechanical thing. You're saying
Absolutely.
like that's called high noise and asatsmai, like that kind of thing.
Well, you could do that, yeah. So I'm saying that in Dovashu Mufrach Lagam Imiyoid, and it's completely concealed, you see, this is an example by walking. It's a completely physical phenomenon. What is the neshama there? And ultimately, he brings out the neshama. How? By delving into the into the depth, into the very depth of the sin. What is the real phenomenon of walking, for example? Is it a physical accomplishment, or is it a spirit? There is a spirit behind it. That's walking. What enables, what entices a person to walk? His legs, or his nefesh? Like we said the other day, we said, I'm kind of backpedaling a bit. A car was conceptualized by the human in projection that he must be able to reach any place in the world. This is how it was conceptualized. Once it's there, so people go back to the helem or hester, say, oh, a car, oh, it's a nice thing to race with. And they go in circles racing. The same thing is in walking. Walking is a koach hanefesh. Ultimately, I'm going to race you. That's not walking. This is comparing one set of legs against another set of legs. This is not the koach hanefesh. שזה נקרא חוכם גודל. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a line. וזה דווקא, okay, the line begins ביוסר. וזה דווקא נקרא gibor בחוכמה. This specifically, only this is called gibor בחוכמה. לא רק בהשכלה. Not only בהשכלה. מה שביכולתי להשכיל בכל עניין ביוסר. He can conceptualize in every עניין ביוסר. He can conceptualize and understand the Indian very in all its breadth. That is not a gibor. What is שזה נקרא חוכם גודל. One who is able to be masculine, be yoser, is נקרא חוכם גודל. שזה רק גדלות החוכמה להשכיל בהעניין, to understand the עניין יויser מהזולס, שאינו משכיל כל כך. It's exactly what you were just now finishing to saying. Chochem Godel means, how do you measure Chochem Godel? He understands more than the next guy. He can be masculine, he can develop it more than the next guy. In other words, this is not measured against a sechel, it's measured against on a functional level of sechel. נקרא חוכם גודל שזה רק גדלוס החוכמה להשכיל בהעניין יויסר מהזולס. Is חוכם גודל. What's with the Chacham Gadol? Because he understands more than the next guy. On the reduced level, he runs better because he runs faster than the next guy. This is not the koyach hanefesh. This is on the koyach, on the functional koyach. Also coming from the level, but this is not the esem hanefesh. Who does not conceptually, does not go to such a great degree of depth, of breadth in the sechel. But what is a gibor b'chochmah? It is to bring out dover hanelam, a concealed inyan, something that can't tell any chochmah in this. Dafka, only there is the inyan of gibor. To the point that there is nothing that is nelam that is concealed from you. That's mean gibor b'chochmah. For our purposes, we experience this all the time. The Rebbe takes apart a Rashi. His kashas are gvurelike kashas. Nobody saw a kasha in this. You don't see that there is anything to ask. All of a sudden, the whole thing opens up, it's broken through. And then you come at the end of the kasha and say, he's stumped. Where is the answer going to come from? Where is the answer going to come from? What?
I don't know, but the questions seem... I think the reason why we don't ask the questions is because...
I'm sorry?
The reason why the questions seem at some level straightforward, but we don't ask them because they're impossible to answer. It's not even in the gathered answer.
Sometimes there is such a thing. We don't try to ask a question because when you're climbing up straight walls, you're not going to get the answer. But many times, a lot of times, the questions themselves are boggle the mind. Why? How is the Rebbe? Because the Rebbe always looks, and the Rebbe has one klal in Rashi, as he says. Everything has to be perfectly smooth, perfect in Torah. Not understandable, but perfect. And if it's lacking perfection, something bothers him. And in this, it's lacking perfection. Once you start digging, looking at it and say, hey, the whole thing falls apart. That's what I like, gibor b'chochmah. There's a sefer on Chumash. It's called Hamek Dover. This is from the Nitziv. So, if you learn the sefer, his diyukim are also outlandish. And this is why, in general speaking, the yeshivas, they shun the sefer. Hey, he's climbing up straight walls. The fact is that he brings out a very fine depth in the Chumash, in the words, extremely fine depth. Because people are not interested in Gvura. They want to understand what's going on over here. I don't want to fight against the wall. And it's not very interesting. Okay, so I have this thing. It's another example. Okay, we will now go down. Gibor with tefillah. Let's see how that works.
Not fall asleep.
What?
Not to fall asleep.
Disconnected.
Not what?
Not to fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
Big tour.
la 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 la